All bore diagrams of people in various stages of dismemberment. On the last page, there was a drawing of a pair of eyes next to a disfigured man. This was in your mailbox? Mm-hmm. You ever hear anything like this? No, she said. I don't know what language it is, but man, someone put some serious hoodoo into these pages, and they don't feel like regular paper either. Why don't you, I closed my eyes. One of the first things Maggie taught me when I met her 6 years ago was how not to see the things that I could. When I met her, I couldn't turn it off or on. It just came and went. It was like spending half of my days on a bad acid trip and the other trying to convince myself that what I saw wasn't real. She taught me how to control my sight through willpower. I willed the doors in my mind to open, the walls to lower, and when I opened my eyes again, holy shit! I staggered backward. The pages in the book held power, that was a fact, but when Maggie said it was dark power, she couldn't have known just how dark or just how much energy there was. In the 9 pages before us, I saw energy, a thin corona of blue surrounded by a swollen mass of black flame. It was almost as if the book were possessed. More alarming, when I looked at Maggie, her hands seemed to be stained where she'd touched them. Her normally white and pink and yellow aura had smudges of black in it. "Let him go," I said. Slapped them down to the countertop. Maggie looked hurt for a moment, but then her face changed to one of curiosity. It was black. It was so black. The energy radiating off those pages, it was marking you wherever you touched them. She stared at them for a minute. So, what do we do with them? I don't know, but I'd sure like to know why somebody sent them to me. Me too, she said. Maybe Evergreen could help. Evergreen. Strange and mystical society of coffee-drinking, bookstore-meeting, demon-trapping mystery men and women. They were made up of people from all different religions, the knowledge of which they used to try to keep balance in the world. Well, or at least in Pittsburgh. If there was something metaphysical going on in Steel City, chances were good that they already knew about it. But if they didn't, they'd want to. Give Bill a call, I nodded. Tell him I'll be over in a little while. Maggie nodded and hustled to the back of the shop. I stood there and stared at the grotesque images and rusty writing. As I tried to puzzle out who would possibly send me something so strange and dangerous. Oh, yeah, so strange and dangerous, period. The envelope contained no letter, no instructions, not even a postcard or a hastily scrawled note. The bell over the door sounded. A mop of curly dark hair peeked inside, followed by a pair of enormous green eyes and pale skin. I'm sorry, he said as he peered around the room. I think I'm in the right place. Is this the, Cast a nervous look over his shoulder. Witchcraft shop? Yep, I said. Come on in, you're in the right place. What followed his head was dressed in black down to his canvas Chuck Taylors. He was skinny and tall, 2 things I'd never been, and looked nervous as a cat. Most people who visited Maggie's shop knew what it was and knew what they were looking for. And for the most part, only serious practitioners of the craft visited. The fad crafters could go down the street to a half-dozen other shops for their bumper stickers and love potions. People that came here were looking for herbs that only Maggie could find, or handmade grimoires, or energy-charged oils or candles. The lanky kid couldn't have been more than 16 years old, and he seemed scared out of his mind, like he was sure that at any moment the cage would drop from the ceiling and I'd drag him into the back and use his boiled carcass to make flying ointment. Apart from how ridiculous such a thing was, it would also be bad for business. I didn't tell him that. In fact, I stayed very quiet while he looked from shelf to shelf, skirting around the outside of the store, casting nervous glances toward me every so often. I left a message for Bill, said Maggie as she came through the curtain. He said he'll call me as soon as he gets... Oh, hi. The boy went rigid the moment he saw her, all the nervousness replaced by abject terror. I've seen the same look on other boys' faces the first time they meet Maggie. Hell, I've worn it myself when we first met. I wasn't afraid she'd eat me or turn me into a toad. I was terrified she'd actually talk to me. The more beautiful the woman, the more intimidated a lot of guys become. And Maggie was not only beautiful, she had the confidence to stare down the Sphinx. She made her way around the corner and over to him with her most winning smile on her face and her hand outstretched. I know she meant to be warm and welcoming, but to a terrified male being greeted by someone like Maggie, it's like coming face to face with a Playboy playmate. I'm surprised he didn't piss his pants. "What's your name?" she said. Seth. "You can call me Electra," she said. Behind the counter, I groaned, again with the magical name bullshit. Way back when, witches were persecuted and put to death for their beliefs, what most of them erroneously referred to as the burning times, practitioners of the craft met in secret and used names other than their own to keep themselves safe. But here, in the 21st century, there wasn't much of a need for such things, especially if a person was prepared to walk into a shop like Maggie's in broad daylight. Still, some people swore by such a practice, so who was I to judge? "If there's anything I can help you with," she said, ignoring me, "you let me know." She turned toward me and twisted her upper lip to let me know she'd heard me. "Actually," said the just Seth, "there is something I'm looking for." "Sure," she said, leading him to the counter. "What do you need?" "Well," he seemed to be searching for the right words, ones that wouldn't make us laugh him out of the shop. I wanted to tell him not to worry, that we'd heard it all before and that we wouldn't laugh at him, but before I could, he took a deep breath and blurted, "The, Necronomicon?" And I was wrong. It took a moment for what he said to sink in, and I turned and walked quickly through the back curtain before I collapsed in a fit of giggles. Every so often, a kid just beginning to dabble in the occult stumbled across the collected works of H.P. Lovecraft. In them, he or she found references to a strange tome written by an insane Arab in 748 A.D., bound in human flesh, inked in blood, and containing the secrets to unlocking such powerful arcane mojo that whoever read it would become a dark god themselves and be damned for all eternity in the bargain. These same kids scanned the internet until they found crackpots who claimed the book was real and they'd actually seen it, only to have it whisked away by some dark conspiracy. There's only one problem. Those people are full of shit. The Necronomicon doesn't exist. It never existed. Lovecraft himself admitted as much countless times, but that didn't deter the ones who wanted to believe. In fact, several fiction publishers contracted writers to come up with their own Necronomicons to cash in on Lovecraft's mysterious tome of forbidden knowledge. So every now and again, some terrified teenager with dreams of getting back at the world for some great wrong, real or imagined, would go on a hunt for the fictitious tome, only to wind up in a shop like Maggie's where the harsh truth would be revealed. Kid's lucky someone as nice and gentle as Maggie was the one who broke the news to him. I once gave a kid the old, "I had it, but a man in black took it just before you got here." Yeah, Maggie wasn't amused. It took me a few moments to compose myself before I went out, just catching the tail end of Maggie's lesson in literature to the boy. I could tell she was as gentle as she could be, but his face was still crimson with embarrassment, and he wouldn't meet her eyes as she spoke. When she was done, she offered him a few books on real magic, offered to answer any questions, and he thanked her for her kindness and took the books. He also bought a few candles, one of which I noted was for drawing love. At the register, he still wouldn't look directly at Maggie or me. She rang up his purchases and handed him the receipt, and as he reached for his bag, his eyes locked on the strange pages on the counter. Are those? Art, I said, as I scooped them up and tucked them back in the envelope. From a class at Pitt. His eyes met mine for a moment, and in them I saw a terrified boy, but also anger. He snatched up his bag and rushed out of the shop. Maggie sighed as the door banged shut behind him. Well, that went well. Hey, better I set him straight than he gets sucked into one of those Necronomicon cults. She wasn't angry, but there was an edge to her voice, letting me know that, funny as it was, she still respected the kid's feelings. The telephone rang and Maggie snatched it from its charger. "Bill?" I could hear the old man's genial voice from the speaker. "Okay, I'll send him right over." I put the envelope in my shoulder bag and headed toward the door. "He's waiting at the coffee shop at the end of the block." "Why can't he meet us here?" I asked. "He's on his lunch break. The coffee shop is halfway between him and us." I stepped out into the warm summer air, and my mind boggled at the concept that Bill of Evergreen actually had a job. I mean, sure, he was a normal guy, but it seemed hard to fathom that such a powerful elder of the metaphysical community would actually have a 9-to-5er. Somehow I still pictured him living in a cave lit by torches and doing nothing all day but changing lead into gold and thinking really deep thoughts. I'd barely gone a block when someone struck me from behind and knocked me to the sidewalk. I hit hard, banged my knee and my elbow on the way down, and my face slapped off the concrete. For a moment, I saw little bright flashes of light, and then I saw a pair of black Chuck Taylors in front of my face. Just Seth snatched my bag and took off down the street, running as fast as his lanky legs could carry him. I staggered to my feet and gave chase. Yeah, that was futile. At my age and shape, my days of distance running are over, especially if I'm chasing a skinny kid. I tried to get into shape a while ago. I even took up jogging. I figured that if I was going to be chased by demons or monsters, it might be good to be able to outrun them. All it did, however, was make me sore, miserable, and sweaty. It took all of 2 weeks for me to give it up, and as I watched the kid disappear around the corner, I almost regretted quitting. Almost. I hobbled down the street, got to the corner a full minute and a half after he turned it. Sitting there on the sidewalk was my bag, now empty. I snatched it off the ground and limped back down the block to my car. To hell with walking, I decided. My knee hurt too bad, and so did my face. I didn't even care about the stolen mail, but he didn't have to knock me down to get it. I climbed into my car and checked my face in the vanity mirror. My bushy hair looked as out of control as it ever did, but the flesh under my right eye was beginning to darken, as was my cheek. Perfect. The little shit gave me a shiner. I cursed under my breath as I backed out. So that's the first chapter of Pages. I was told that I should open up the last part of this to question and answer. Does anybody have any questions? Or I could just tell you a ghost story or two.
Ghost story.
Tell us a local ghost story.
Tell you a local ghost? I'll tell you one that will really that you can appreciate. Do you remember Lindsay Trask?
Yes.
Lindsay Trask was a graduate student at in the Department of English back when I worked there, and I wrote a series of articles about real haunted places in the U.S., and everybody knew what I did, so it was not uncommon for people to show up at my office door with spooky stories to tell. And so one day Lindsay came to my office and she said, I need your help. I said, okay, come in, sit down, talk to me. She says, there's something wrong with my house, with my apartment that I live in. I said, why? What's happening? She says, well, I keep getting locked out. I said, big deal, you're a dingbat. She said, yeah, okay, I do leave my keys in the house, but the lock that keeps locking is a double-key deadbolt. You have to have a key on both sides to turn it, so how is it locking without my key in it? I said, I don't know, you got me. She said, and I keep losing stuff too, like my glasses will disappear and that kind of thing. I said, once again, nothing weird about that. I know you, Lindsay. She says, yeah, well, last night was the worst night of my life. She said, I was laying in my bed and I was trying to go to sleep, and I heard the door to my room open. And then I heard someone walk into the room. I felt them sit down on the bed next to me. And then I felt fingers running through the back of my hair. She said, when I turned over, there was nobody there. I said, you now have my full attention. She said, and besides that, the house is just weird. It's like they couldn't level anything when they put the house together, because the floor of my room is all slanted down on one side and there's holes on the wall. And I stopped her. I said, wait, you live on San Antonio Street, don't you? Her eyes got very, very big. And she said, how did you know that? I said, Lindsay, the house that you're living in, that's the old funeral home. And the room with the slanted floor, it's supposed to be like that. That's the embalming room. The holes in the wall are drain holes, and that's your bedroom, sweetie. And she moved out 2 days later. I don't know if that has anything to do with me or not. But we have a few ghost stories here on campus, too. There's a wonderful ghost story, 3 of them actually, about Old Main. It has 3 stories. One of them is blatantly a lie. One of them is sort of true. The other one, I'm inclined to believe, is very true. Now, the blatant lie is that the ghost of Lyndon Baines Johnson haunts the halls of Old Main.